I welcome you to observe around you, wherever you are. Pause, look up, look down, listen, listen near, listen for what's far off, breathe, sense motion, smell a flower, wonder. My name is Elizabeth Kavicki. In the seminar that I teach at MIT's Egerton Center, I invite learners of any age to observe what's around. My colleagues in this video, Carol Urbano and Amy Gillespie, are learners with me in these observing activities. I invite you to join us and become observers too. We'll look at the sky during day, sunset, night, or water in a river or a puddle, the seasons of trees, an electric spark or magnet's pull. What do you notice personally? Anything unexpected? Does something awaken your curiosity? We invite you to look another time, reflect on what you notice, act on your curiosity in some new way, share and expand your ideas about the world. We welcome every observation, every question, every wonderment you may have. We encourage you in being free to notice what's going on. Look out with fresh eyes, without supposing that you or anyone else has described it before. We are all explorers in the unknown, right where we are. For people a long time ago, everything was unknown. They started by observing the sky. They came to know the ways of the moon, the sky, the seasons, by watching, wondering, exploring, and sharing. We can do that too. It's always okay for us to ask questions, questions that come out of our own curiosity, questions that continually open more for us to observe and question. Together, we create new understanding of the world through experiences that we share with each other and with people of long ago. This week, we ask you to make your own observations. The three of us, Amy, Carol, and I, are observing the moon this month, and we're excited to share with you from our learning as observers and hear about yours.
After deciding to observe the moon, reflecting on what you see or don't see can fuel your curiosity and bring your understanding to the next level. Ask yourself, does what I observe fit in with my current understanding of the situation? We all bring our current understandings of the way the world works to every situation. Those understandings come from things we learned in school, our intuition and reasoning, teachings of our culture, and things we remember hearing someone say, but can't quite remember how it works or what the details are. Sometimes there are gaps in our understanding, and we may or may not be aware of them. Start with what you observe. For example, I observed the moon in the sky during the day. My current assumption is that the moon is visible at nighttime. This new observation might cause me to rethink that assumption, revise it, make it more complex and nuanced. Perhaps now I will say, the moon is most easily visible at nighttime because of the contrast between the dark sky and the white moon, but it's sometimes visible during the day if the conditions are right. My new understanding fuels my curiosity. It raises more questions than it answers. When is it possible to see the moon? What are the right conditions? If I look for the moon anytime, will I find it? These new questions will lead me to new observations I want to make to test some of these hypotheses. I might decide to set an alarm for 4 times a day and go outside and try to find the moon in the sky. If I do this for 1 day, I will have some information to answer some of my questions. If I do this for a week or for a month, I'll have more information and no doubt more questions. The process of observing, reflecting, and revising my understanding is a cycle that can continue as long as I stay curious.
But sometimes being curious isn't quite enough. So during this process, we're also going to ask you to document your observations and reflections. And it's actually one of the things that I've found most powerful about coming together as a group to observe the sky together. We gather together each Friday and share information about our experiences throughout the week, and then ask each other questions and kind of just casually riff off of each other's observations. And so when I started this journey, I just started kind of randomly doing the moon observations. And then I realized I wasn't really taking any notes or anything. So I started with doing some YouTube videos out on my back deck. And then as we got together each week, I feel like the group kind of challenged me to kind of up my game a little bit. So I'm going to start to do a screen share and share a little bit about how folks have been documenting their own observations and reflections, and how that's challenged me throughout the process. So one of my favorites is I think Elizabeth. She's been doing this for a while, and she seems to have gotten a process that really works for her. So I'm sharing a Google Doc of her moon observations. And if you notice, she actually does a quick sketch. And one of the things that I really love about Elizabeth's sketches is they're really able to capture some of the observations that I couldn't. So when I would go out and it was dark out, I was using my iPad or my phone and I was pointing it at the sky. And so really I just have this whole series of black videos. And so I'm doing running commentary over them, but you can't really see what I'm seeing. So it was difficult to share that experience with Amy and Elizabeth. So I really liked that Elizabeth took the time to really think about what colors she was seeing and where things were in the sky and what things were in the foreground and what time of day it was. So that really inspired me to also observe more closely about those things. Where were things in the sky in relation to other things, and what colors was I seeing? Then another member of our group um, is actually in the Philippines, and he uses photography, but also in a Google Doc, and makes some notes around it, notes the time, thinks about, you know, what kinds of questions does it bring up. And one day when he shared his document with us, we discovered that he was trying to build his own sextant, which was really interesting to me. And he was also observing that because he couldn't really get out, he and didn't have a great angle for the night sky, he started doing some daytime observations, and he was doing that around shadows. So it really made me curious about what I might be able to observe about shadows and what tools of discovery I might want to make on my own. So I'm just going to stop sharing that part of my screen for a moment and switch to the process that I've now started using for my observations, which is I'm doing some note taking on my iPad. So this is my iPad, and it's all going to be backwards for you guys, but you can see that what I started doing was I was interested in the shadows and how they move around my yard. So I picked a stationary point that didn't move. So that's the railing on my deck each day. And then I decided to set an alarm. I took inspiration from Amy, who was setting her alarm for her observation. So I set an alarm and I tried to go out once every hour, of course, when I wasn't on a Zoom call. And then this little application allows me to draw over that, so I could start to make some angles and think about how the shadows were moving in relation to the sun. And so then I also ended up coming up with a whole series of other questions that came up for me while I was doing this process, and how I could design a better experiment. So I really enjoyed, this whole focus on how I was documenting my reflections. Really helped cement some understanding for me, and gave me a way to communicate that back with the group that I think helped us all move our own observations forward. Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit about how this community of sky observers has kind of progressed over the time of your teaching, and what other experiences your students have brought to the table?
Yeah, I'm excited to share with you. Just as Amy and Carol have shared with you from our ongoing moon observations, for us, observing moves us to begin documenting, as Carol explained, which encourages us to become reflective, as Amy discussed, in any order without any ending. Some of my students created this beautiful display showing that process, that for us, for children, and for historical people, by observing, documenting, and reflecting, as you see in the big letters on the poster, our curiosity ever deepens and comes upon new adventures. If we look at one part of the poster on the upper right, close up, one student's abstract drawing of wave patterns on the left invites us to continue connections with another student's photo of waves in the bottom, and with the neurons diagrammed by the historical Spanish microscopist Ramon y Cajal on the right, on the top. Another student described how reflection is crucial when we're living in uncertainty, and she wrote here, "People tend to reflect when dealing with ambiguity. We become reflective as we're trying to make connection between the known and the unknown." For me, as the teacher, I am in the unknown together with you. What you observe, document, and reflect on with the moon and the sky this week will surprise me. I'm always amazed by my students' curiosity and how they act on it when I invite them with the seemingly simple request to observe the moon or something else. Observation doesn't finish or become replaced by getting some answer or result. There are always additional questions and experiments, and I encourage those additional questions for you as I do for my students. When Amy was taking the class with me, I didn't tell them what to look for or when. I encouraged everyone, do your own original observing without using an online or outside source. I said, leave it open to yourself to learn and become acquainted with what's going on in the sky, with the observations that we're generating together. Astounded when the moon wasn't findable, one classmate reflected, "I assumed the moon was in the night sky every night, and if I didn't see it, I was just ignorant." Not having seen the moon all week, another classmate was elated upon sighting something very bright. It must be the moon. Imagine his dismay upon looking again, this time with his glasses on, and instead it was the hood blimp over Fenway Park. When he did see the moon 3 weeks later, he was thunderstruck by its beauty and his emotion. Observing experiences intensified among Amy and her classmates. Finding ourselves more like children than typical adults, we identified with the Little Prince of Saint-Exupéry and historical scientists who also adventured in the sky, Galileo, Kepler, the Wright brothers, and Neil Armstrong. Observing the moon when they could, with ever new questions, the class wondered what the sun is doing. On the spot, they hatched the project to make their own sundial. Everyone made a cardboard triangle to carry around for catching the sun's shadow. In the next class, though, only Amy had actually tried it out, and she said the shadow was opposite of what I expected. Something was awry. Questioning where was north for the sundial reference, classmates put their sundials with the compass app side by side with conventional magnetic compasses. The sundial compasses pointed in wildly different directions. Amy proposed that we make our own compass from a magnetized needle. Collaborating, everyone paraded outside to test it. When their floating pin turned where they thought north should be, with their cardboard sundial beside, casting its shadow, everyone exclaimed with wonder. Amy reflected,
We started with an idea, researched ways to get started, did a few measurements, encountered setbacks, and brainstormed ways to overcome them. Each step forward we made unraveled more complexity and showed us how interconnected the phenomena we observed are.
Having discovered the sun and moon to be in relationship, Amy and her classmates went on to enact these heavenly bodies with their own bodies and in chalkboard diagrams and with physical models using balls and light. In other semesters, learners in my seminar have responded to the opening to observe and wonder by evolving and diverse explorations. For example, observing how trees change, collecting autumn leaves and printing them with colored inks, tapping maple trees and experimentally refining sugar from the saps, or observing water and its surface forms and motions, and responding to Leonardo da Vinci's water drawings with our experiments, or investigating what happens when we combine a flashlight with wire and something else, like a magnetic compass or a bulb. Through observing and becoming ever more aware, we are amazed by all there is to notice, wonder, and explore. We trust in the power and meaning of your own personal observing, the growth of your curiosity, your potential for questions and insights, your collaboration with others. Your experience as collaborating observers builds relationships of care, connection, and wisdom. As explorers together, you will develop transformative new understandings of the world, of each other, and of people of the past and in the future. We're excited for your observing and for the ever continuing questions, investigations, and experience that you will initiate through being in the unknown right where you are today.